It's just the way it's written, the way it's voiced, the way everything. The whole setup. You're like, I'm glad I listened to 50 hours of this book for this moment.
This is why I do not recommend jumping right into Oathbringer right after finishing Words of Radiance.
And I feel so bad for Adel, and he's like such a good kid.
I know, it's so heartbreaking. Welcome back to Next Chapter. I'm Marty, and this is Jaden, and we just finished Oathbringer Part 4 and 5. We're doing it all in one. This is the end, this Sanderlanche of
finished
Oathbringer.
The book. We finished it, and I'll be honest, I'm impressed that we were able to finish it in a week.
Holy cow. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second and talk about this. It is 18 hours, the last part of the book that we read.
Congratulations, by the way.
I know. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great. But 18 hours, like, can you comprehend that? Some books are 10 hours long. The whole book. This whole Oathbringer book could be 4 or 5 books all in one.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
a big book.
I realized at the end, we talk about the fact that it's a Sanderlanche. There are 2 chapters right near the end that account for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Those last 2 chapters.
Well, I got to the part when it was starting the Sanderlanche and it was starting the big war and everything. I'm like, I still have 8 hours left. Some people have like a whole intro to a book, like building to a climax and then a finish. And this is all climax.
Some entire books are written in that same time frame.
Yeah. Where he just, so imagine an entire book of climax. That's what you've got.
Yeah. How many pages is Oathbringer?
Oh, don't do that.
No, you have your computer. I don't. So I figure we give the opportunity for all these things, all these calculations that we might not have otherwise. And the reason I asked that is I wanted to divide the number of pages by the actual time that it takes. I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's 54 hours. I think it's 54 hours.
Something like
of
that.
reading.
It's
what's the verdict?
Approximately 1,248 pages in hardcover.
I'm sure different versions
edition.
have different. So
the hardcover edition.
So that's 23 pages per hour of reading, roughly.
Okay.
So that means if I'm saying there's two chapters or 3 hours, then that's like 60, 70-ish, 70 pages.
So how many pages are we reading per hour? Did you say 23?
23.
Okay. Is that
It's actually a lot less than I expected.
I know.
Why did I feel like it'd be way more
How
than
many pages do you read on an hour on average? You read like 80 pages
quite
an hour,
a
don't
lot. Yeah. I feel like I read close to 75, 80 pages in an hour.
That is ridiculous. I'm closer to like 10 pages an hour.
No, you're not.
I promise you, I'm like 10, maybe 15.
I bet you're pretty close to this.
I promise you I'm not.
Okay, so yeah.
I read a book like this and I have to flip back. I have to see what's happened. Like I get caught up and I start thinking about things. Like I just literally cannot read faster than that. That's why I have to listen.
I get completely lost. When I'm reading, I'm like just totally in. It's awesome because I'll be reading and then sometimes my wife will be like, "Are you actually reading that?" There's a lot of flipping going on.
Oh my gosh!
But it's fun to get like super engulfed in it and you're just like cruising through the plot. You're like really excited. Momentum builds.
But see, for you, that's the key word. For you, it's cruising through the plot means that you're engulfed. For me, it means I'm moving slowly and I'm there. I'm understanding every word. Why did he say it this way?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? Like I am jumping back all the time. Like, ooh, that's interesting. He just said this here. Didn't this character say that earlier?
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing that the whole time when I'm reading. And that's why I have to listen to audiobook because I will never finish a book.
I feel like it just pulled along. Like I don't even have time to think about because I'm just like letting it just take me like a current.
Oh my gosh. There's just
At least
a part
I'm reading
of me,
physically.
Yeah.
It's the difference.
That's the physical thing. And for me, there's just a part of me that I just can't. I can't move on. It's the OCD part of me that like if I don't go back and look up this, I feel like I'm missing part of the experience. So even happens in audio a bit too. I had to listen freaking fast before this podcast started.
18 hours, guys. It's a part-time job.
I know. For
if
real,
that does not deserve a like on the video, I don't know what does.
Give it to us. Someone said, like, can you really enjoy a book on 2 times speed?
Yes.
And yes, you can, actually. Honestly, though, my preferred speed is 1.5 speed. I feel like then I can really enjoy it and everything. Mm-hmm. But I've read the book before. I can do 2 times speed. You bet that Wind and Truth is going to be a 1.5 speed. I know it's the longest book he's ever written for Stormlight Archive, but that is going to be 1.5. Somehow I'm going to make it work.
I love 2 times speed. If I don't do 2 times speed, my mind starts to wander, and then I miss stuff because it's too slow.
Yeah.
More often than I miss stuff because it's too fast.
Oh man, I skip. So what I was going to say is I skip back all the time on this speed.
Yeah.
Because like even the 2 times speed, I'm like, wait. Sometimes he says words so quickly I didn't understand what he said. Yeah. And so I'm like always skipping back. I'm like, is it even like 2 times speed anymore with how much I'm like skipping back?
Might as well just go regular 1-time speed.
Yeah, seriously. But
it's pretty interesting, actually. I'm surprised we haven't had that conversation about like the physical reading thing before. What are we, like 75 episodes into this?
We bring it up every once in a while.
But yeah, I'm curious. Now I want to figure out exactly how many pages I read in an hour. Because, I mean, I'm probably...
What was that episode that you did that there was like the study about
how
fast
it was
people can
250 words. Was it per minute?
I don't know.
It's got to be per minute. You read a word in less than a second.
And you were saying that you can read faster than most people listen to audiobooks, right?
Yes. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
See, we have talked about this.
That's one of our like first episodes.
I know.
I think.
Back when we had
most people have
light
not
blue
seen
wall.
That. And if you haven't seen that, if you go back, just know we have changed. The podcast has changed. We painted the wall. We have grown as people.
Yep. It was an oldie, but a goodie.
That's true. It was a good one. Yeah. I wonder what
we had a little plant.
There was a plant. Where's that?
And a little...
The plant, it's the same plant. I don't know if you can see it because I have to cut the frame like here, but there's a plant right over there.
Did you ever call it the octopus plant first?
No, I've never called it that.
Oh, maybe I've only thought that to myself every single time. Like the octopus plant, the Davy Jones plant.
I like Davy Jones better than the octopus plant.
Man, it's like the same thing.
It kind of has that vibe.
Beard.
It does have that vibe to it. But those are some good videos. If you haven't seen them because you're new to the channel, first of all, subscribe. That's big. Step 1. Step 2, feel free to dive into the archives of what was once the Marty and Jaden show. For those of you who remember those days. Next chapter is our official new title.
Yeah,
but
we stepped into our next chapter.
You know what? That's a good one. We turned the page and entered the next chapter.
We did it.
So,
but
where were we?
we left off leaving Shallan, Kaladin, Adolin, Azure, all in Shadesmar.
Yep.
They had just transferred into Shadesmar through the Oath Gate. And they get there, and Azure asks, like, oh, man, I hate this place.
Yep.
Which is great.
She is funny, though. Like, her character doesn't last forever in this part. But it's funny how she's literally just like, I'm not with you guys. Like, I'm kind of here. You guys kind of roped me into this, but I'm just going to leave. You guys do whatever you need to do. I have my own plans here.
It's hilarious. And this is very small spoiler for some of the other books. I'm not going to go into specifically which character this is. Someone told me this when I first read the book, and I appreciate it to understand how the Cosmere is super connected. But Azure is actually a character from Warbreaker.
There are quite a few references to Warbreaker that I did not catch the first time I read this book because I hadn't read Warbreaker. Now that I have, it is wild.
Yeah, aren't the connections crazy?
And like so specific, like, oh yeah, this person. You're like, whoa, like they rarely just name people from other books like that.
Yep.
I think that's really cool.
Oh, and she's full on just like, did you guys cut the cloths in the specific shapes that I asked you to? Yeah. And I'm like, has to be something with...
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love the sword. So the sword is a big one. We'll probably get there in a second.
Oh,
probably one of my favorite parts of...
Probably one of my favorite characters in the whole series.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the sword is a great character.
So maybe this is a reading order question. I kind of love the fact that I met the sword in Oathbringer and then read Warbreaker.
I'm with you. I think that is the way to... I think the sword... I don't know if it's Michael Kramer is the reason for it, but he reads that character so well that you fall in love with him.
Yeah.
And then Warbreaker doesn't quite hit the same with the sword.
But the fact that you already know the sword when you read Warbreaker, you're like, oh man, that's so awesome. And you kind of learn more about it because even in like the Stormlight Archive, you're like, that's just weird. You know, it just doesn't really match with the vibe of Stormlight and all these things. But it's pretty darn cool. I think the connections to Warbreaker overall make it more fun to read, especially this last part. So I think that's something that we might want to... Maybe the reading order that I would say is Oathbringer, Warbreaker, Oathbringer. And then
well, it's interesting. So I just looked up...
Can I have people read like a part of the book over again and then go on?
Yeah. Well, so it's people who are early Sanderson fans must have read Warbreaker first because Warbreaker came out 8 years before Oathbringer did. Oh. Interesting. So that would have been super exciting for all those people who had read Warbreaker before and then getting into Oathbringer. That's huge because Warbreaker came out in June 2009. Oathbringer came out in November of 2017.
Wow. Well, Oathbringer's a lot more recent than I give it credit for. 7 years. I know it's a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I feel like it was earlier than that because this series has been building for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can't remember when the first one
And it's
came
about to finish at Dragonsteel Nexus this year. In what?
Part 1 of the series.
8 weeks? How close are we now?
Oh,
we got to be close. Because it's only about a month and a half
Maybe
from
like
now.
6 weeks. Wow. Yeah, crazy. So anyways, lots of exciting stuff. We'll get more into the sword in a second.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But yeah, they go to Shadesmar. What do you think about the whole Shadesmar experience of the book?
There was one question that I had that I asked myself so much so that I wrote it down, and then Sanderson answered it literally 5 minutes later.
Wait, what in the world? We're in
a very specific,
he wrote you an email and says, "Hey Jaden, you were wondering this.
You were thinking this, and I know that." No, it was. So my question, I was like, you know what? They're in all these beads. They cruise around. It's like, why? They're tied to this
he answered it in the book.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
They tied to the physical world. I'm like, what if you just picked one up that was like a pen or something? You just threw it as far as you could. And would the pen just flip out in the real world? I was like, I don't know. It just feels weird to me. And then literally 5 minutes later, I even wrote it down. I'm like, well, crap. There you go. There's the answer. He's spelled it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if the readers...
What was the answer?
The answer... So they specifically say that you could do that. You could carry it wherever you wanted to, but as soon as you dropped it, it would make its way back.
Yep.
That's what they say.
Because essentially all these beads, if you remember, are just the essence of physical objects in the real world.
So location doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, which is interesting. And location also doesn't matter for the spiritual realm. Mm-hmm. I was really listening for that one too, because that's the realm we know the least about.
Yep.
It's the one that's everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. But then this same thing with the beads, I was wondering that, but I was also wondering about the spren as well. Because you see the glory spren flying around, or the anger spren just kind of come walking in, or whatever.
We don't need any more of those guys.
Don't want those guys. But I'm like, how does that work though with the real world? Because like how do they just show up right when you're angry if they have to walk there in Shadesmar? But it must be the same type of deal.
Yeah.
They must kind of just start appearing because they're just drawn there. So I don't know.
I think because location has little impact. I think it also is interesting. That means people that can walk around in Shadesmar a little bit better probably have an easier time navigating into the real world wherever they want to without having to actually move there, which I think is cool. The other thing about Shadesmar, to tie this off nicely in a little bow, is the fact that the oceans and land are swapped. And I was like, that's weird. That's kind of
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, it totally makes sense.
It totally makes. I was thinking about this too. Tell me what your thoughts are on this.
The obvious thought to me is the fact that just the amount of beads. So beads come from the souls of objects, right? There are so many individual objects that exist in a city. But if you were to think a river or an ocean, you've got all of the things that live inside that ocean, but then the ocean itself would be one bead.
Oh, you're right.
Because it's one thing.
Yeah.
So there's the plethora of beads is going to be dramatically reduced because there's just not that many distinct entities in an ocean or in a river or any sort of water.
I know, but then I think though there are still plants in the ocean and animals.
Yeah, but every single rock is its own soul on land. Whereas drop of water is not.
You're right. But what about the things
on
the
difference.
Bottom of the ocean?
I'm telling you, the difference has got to be significant enough to make that up.
You're right. But also, I wonder if it doesn't matter, because do you think the beads are only souls of things that people have given thought to? So since they don't know as much about the ocean, it doesn't matter.
I could get behind that,
because that's kind of how spren work, right? Is that they are the way that they are, and they're
imagined by people.
Yeah, because they're thought of by humans first.
I kind of like that. I like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and the other thought that I had with it too, another question I had, is they lock up Syl, right? During
Cruel.
Yeah, Cruel. But here's the thing.
She's the best.
Yeah, she is the best. But what if Kaladin lets her stay locked up in on the boat prison? Then he goes back to the physical realm. He summons his shard blade. Does Syl just show up and is out of the prison now? Or is she stuck in the prison still, but still able to manifest as a sword? Not sure how that works.
What happens to the spren in Shadesmar when they manifest in the real world?
I don't know. So
Does it disappear?
Well, with Maya, they were saying the same thing. Is like they were mentioning another Deadeye that was on the ship, on one of the ships, and like, yeah, he's in there because I just don't want him walking around just following aimlessly looking for the person who holds his sword. Yeah. And so like apparently they can be separated. They can be in different places. Fine, but I don't really understand how that works with like Syl, who has to have like a mental connection with Kaladin to be able to talk with him and zip around in the physical realm and things like that.
Man. Yeah. That is a good question.
I know. It's interesting, isn't it?
I wonder if we'll learn that in the next book and I just missed it, or if that's something we're going to have to ask Sanderson.
I know. Maybe he just missed it.
I highly doubt that.
Me too,
if there's any, like, we're talking about likelihood, that's probably the last on the list.
I completely agree. The guy's got every detail down. It's amazing.
The fact that he answered my question about the distance connection thing right immediately after I thought it, that like blew my mind. I was like, okay, hold on.
This is what's incredible about his writing is you can tell he knows what you're thinking with like all the loopholes and things. Because this happens when they're planning things out. They'll say something like, we got to do this, this, and this. And then someone will specifically say what you're thinking. Well, why don't you just do it this way? That's way easier.
Like,
he
how did you know?
Always has someone do that. And it's on purpose. It's just to address your questions. Like, yes, I'm not going to give you the easy way out. And I thought about it.
It feels more realistic too when a character in the book asks a plot related question just like you had. Because it will linger. Like, it was something, if he didn't answer that, it would have lingered in my mind till this podcast, and I would have been like, well, hold on. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, what happens when they, like, move stuff around? Like, does it get all affected in the real world? Because my bigger question was, like, the pen idea. What if a pen's in a locked room, and then you throw the bead, and, like, what happens? Well, is it outside the room now? Because the room was here, and now the pen's way over here.
True, but that's also the thing, though, is the moving a bead in the cognitive realm doesn't affect anything about the physical world.
Exactly. And that was the connection that I needed from that explanation. That really helped me because like it doesn't actually matter. They just tend to want to be in that location. So without external impact, they just group together in those locations.
Oh, super interesting. The whole thing is just fascinating.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah. So, but what did you think about Shadesmar overall, this part of the book?
You know, I'll be honest, the fact that it's like them walking through Shadesmar, their experiences in there were downplayed a lot for me.
Yeah.
Because what I was more focused on was like just the impact of Shadesmar in general and recognizing it as like a place versus, you know, it's kind of like this really scary entity that exists when Shallan falls into it. And, you know, Yasna's been there. But for me, it was like, okay, this is an entire world. It's like there's people living there and they have ships that go around and all this stuff is like real. It just feels kind of wild. And you start to really think about, oh, what are all the implications of this, which is why I thought about the beads and stuff. But that's where I was stuck.
Yeah. I don't let me forget. I want to talk about the Oathgate thing for a moment too. But my thoughts on this, honestly, I don't know what it is. Shadesmar bores me. Whenever they're in Shadesmar,
maybe that's what it was.
I know. I'm just like, the whole scene for me, I'm just like, they're just doing nothing. They're in Shadesmar, just walking around and things like that. Like, for some reason.
And there's crazy stuff going on.
I know. It's just like kind of boring. I'm like, they're just missing the action. And so I don't know if you had that same feeling at all with it.
That probably was a part of it where you're just like, okay, like they're just going somewhere. They're just walking along. Like, yeah, they have a little bit of, and even you don't feel as intense about the fused and things. Because it happens. They encounter them, like the inspector, and like sets fire to the boat. All these crazy things happen, but you're just not as impacted by it as compared to the fused in the real world. You're like, oh yeah, you know, I hope they get out of it okay. It's just a little bit more muted, I guess. Maybe it's the way it was written.
I don't know.
Because we both felt the same way. That's interesting.
Yeah, I felt that. I definitely felt that. So the last thing I was going to mention with Shadesmar was we had talked before, and I said like, oh, you see the two gigantic human-looking spren, like those must be the unmade, and like that's proof as them being human. Yeah. But upon reading more, we realized that's the Oathgate spren, not the unmade spren. And the unmade spren, like, I think are even just kind of formless in Shadesmar as well.
Do we learn much? I don't think we learned much about the Oathgate spren. We already knew that there was like a spren connection there because they are like the fabrial of the Oathgate, if you could say it like that. Yeah. And then like giving the Stormlight to that makes it work. I just don't like the Sentinel aspect of them. Just doesn't make much sense to me.
To be honest, for some reason that was cool to me. I'm like, oh, they're just the gigantic Sentinels.
Like it just feels like the Egyptian, like the guys that just stand there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I imagine.
It's the guys with the Anubis heads that are standing there with their spears. You're just like, yes, that's kind of what it looked like to me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though.
But I just want to know why. Like, are there two? Because since it transports, one always remains, and then the other one actually does switch locations with the other, and then they will able to switch back. But having two means that you're also able to.
You know what? It didn't even cross my mind to question why there are two. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. There's two.
Yeah,
and now that you say that, I'm like, yeah, why are there two?
I don't know specifically, but I'm very curious. That's one of those things that's just a weird detail. Because if you said there are 7, I'd be like, well, why are there 7? I have to know. But the fact that there are 2 instead of just 1 or whatever, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe there's one for the inner and the outer because you can do them separately. I want to think about it, but maybe Sanderson will help me with that one.
This is interesting. And it's interesting, too, that they can, Odium talks about destroying them and then rebuilding them.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's like, worst. He's like, yeah, you could do, he's like, go and destroy the Oath Gate. It's okay. We can rebuild it when we need it. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know that was a thing. You could rebuild it. And so
you think about how much of what exists in Shadesmar and all these connections were built versus what existed before. Because a lot of you think about the Fabrials and all the technology of the tower and all that stuff. Was it there or did they build it? We don't know for a lot of it.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Good stuff.
This is when you start getting the really good questions on how everything works and just what everyone can do. In this book, I'm just dying to learn more about Dalinar and what in the world does a bondsmith do? The whole time.
Oh, well, a lot of cool stuff.
I know. We learned a little bit more in this chapter, which is cool too. Let's start with Dalinar's past though. So Dalinar goes straight into his drinking problems because he just found out and just remembered that he killed Evie. And he's hearing the screams of the past. And so he has these drinking problems, always looking for more wine to drink.
And that was back when it actually happened. He's a lot of it is flashbacks.
Yeah, these are all the flashbacks. It's just crazy to see. I just think about how awful he feels, right? And then how he treats his children during that whole time too, Adolin and Renarin. It's
awful.
And
you feel so bad for Adolin. He's such a good kid.
I know, it's so heartbreaking. He's trying to be a good soldier and stuff.
Oh, and I just imagine this 3-year-old kid trying to be a little soldier. I'm like, oh.
I know. Well, he even talks more about when he's 12 and he's like, "Yes, sir, Dad," and he's like, I'm just making you proud and things like that.
I always imagine my own kid and that age, and I was like, "Oh man."
I know, just heartbreaking. I'm like, "Oh, you gotta be a good dad for them."
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. But then he eventually, I don't know if there's much you want to talk about besides him going straight to the Night Watcher.
Yeah, I think he did the right thing because he was totally broken and he recognized it. He's like, I have to be better. Yeah. I have to be better for my kids. I have to be I can't live with this. Yeah. And I have to live because I have responsibilities. Yep. Because you think there are other methods when people just can't live with themselves, but he's like, no, I have to be here. I have to be here for my kids. I have to be here for my country. I have responsibilities and I don't know how to continue with this weight I have. So he's like, I have to get rid of this weight somehow. Go to the Night Watcher. That's my best bet.
Oh, yeah. And this is crazy for me reading this experience about him because I don't know why. I think it's because this is why I do not recommend jumping right into Oathbringer right after finishing Words of Radiance. But if you go Words of Radiance, you read Way of Kings, you read Words of Radiance, and then you jump into Oathbringer, you've read almost 150 hours of books by the time
probably
you're
more.
Done with that. And that is exhausting. And so by the time I got to this part in Oathbringer, I did not really get much out of the Night Watcher thing. He was confusing to me. He was just all of a sudden this forest and stuff. This time I was like, I'm not going to miss this again. I need to listen to this carefully to see what's going on. And it was a super cool scene. I'm like, I can't believe I missed so much of this the first time that I read it.
Missed a lot.
Yeah. And it was kind of what you're talking about. It was interesting because he goes in and what he asks for to help himself is for forgiveness. He's like, I need forgiveness, and the Night Watcher's like, what? I don't know what.
Do something easy.
I don't do that. I want to give you something else. But I thought that was really, really interesting. I just love that aspect of Dalinar of just it's such a pure. It shows that he wants to change. Completely. It's just pure desire to change, and that shows how deep like sorrow that he's in.
He's not just make me forget. He's like, I want to basically repent of this kind of thing, like get it off my chest, remove the grief.
Yes.
It's not just I want to forget about it and just move on and still be a terrible person.
Yeah.
He really actually wants to change.
True desire for change. And so that, I mean, all those moments with Dalinar are just like emotional and like heartbreaking. You're like, you just read that, you're like, wow, like it is so cool to just see him like that.
It's intense.
He meets cultivation at this point. And cultivation is fascinating.
I like the cultivation just kind of like injects herself to make things happen the way they're supposed to happen. Like with Lift as well. We've talked about this on her a couple of parts ago. You're just like, yeah, she's just, I'm actually going to give you this.
Yep. And apparently she's talked with Taravangian as well. Mm-hmm. We find that out in this chapter. And she says something about Dalinar. She's like, I'm going to give you this. And this, there was the boon and the curse. Mm-hmm. And the curse was that you'd forget her completely. And he's like, what? But she's like, you will start remembering over time, and this will probably turn you over to Odium, but it could make you the man you need to be or something like that.
Yeah, this is your best chance to become who you need to be.
Right, which is so cool because Dalinar's whole arc, we should probably just finish with it, but
let's do it.
Yeah, his whole arc is, it's important to take your past and learn from it. It's important to like, yes, you make mistakes and you may want to forget about them, but it made you the person that you are today.
Exactly. And the whole book, I was remembering this moment of, it's not the first step, it's the next step. It's the next step. Like it's so much more important the next step you take than the first step you took in the past, because your journey is the next step. Journey before destination, like making progress, making improvements is so much more important. And I think that's cool that they tell this whole story to hammer home that what is the most important step a man can take? It's the next step.
Yep.
And it has to be. And I love that. And this is like epilogue stuff. But basically when he writes it into the book, he's like, I can't tell you what the most important thing is for you, but the most important thing for me is this. And that's all I have. Like, and that's all you have too, is everyone just knows their own next step.
It's so powerful.
It's cool.
I love that. This is why these books teach you real life stuff. Love it.
Make you a better person.
They make you a better person. And that's why he emphasizes, like, that's why it's journey before destination. The journey is so important because it makes you into the person you are today. You need those experiences from before.
It's also so hopeful because it means that not everything is a destination. Like, you think about, we probably won't cover him a ton, but Teft. Mm-hmm. Like, he assumed he was at the destination and his destination sucked.
Yep.
He's like, this is it. Like, my life is done. I lived a full life. I made tons of mistakes, and that's it for me. Like, I don't have
And he assumed that the destination would make him forget his problems before and
Yep.
solve his problems, right?
Yep. So he had to realize that he was still on the journey.
Yes.
And I think what was really cool to me is that his oath was different.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was really, it was different because it was so important. It was
Even
like,
if he hates himself. Like,
I'll protect even those that I hate, even if the one I hate the most is myself.
Ooh, so crazy and so
And like,
good.
that's important because it was really that personal commitment to the oath more so than just like, oh, here are the words. Because I feel like sometimes, like Lopin, he's just like spouts them off. He's like, oh, now? Oh, cool. That's weird. But other people are like, there has to be a full actual transition of themselves to commit to these oaths. And it has to be very personal, which is cool.
I like that. I want to go back to Dalinar, but you touched on this. So I'm thinking about the different oaths that they swear, right?
Yep.
So like life before death, the first one.
The first one's the same.
That enables you to become a squire, right? You have to say that one.
No.
And you can start pulling in Stormlight.
No, I think you can pull in Stormlight without it.
I think you have to say
They were pulling in Stormlight and not really. Lopin was glowing before he said the words, I think.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you kind of have to say it because then the next step.
We can't be wrong on this.
No, you could be right. You could be right.
But you don't. Then you have to find your spread.
Because they're
and then
all
you say
practicing
the next
it in the Shattered Plains at the beginning, and they all recite the words before they start.
Yeah.
And I thought that was part of it.
Oh man, it might be.
But I don't know.
Would they have all said the words?
Then the next part, though, I wonder is when you get your spren, and that's when what Lopin was saying at the end of this.
He already had his spren.
You're right.
So the reason I say this, I think the process is a little bit odd, but I think they've been practicing with Stormlight. So it leads me to believe that they don't immediately get Stormlight once they've said the...
But he swore the second oath at the end of this book.
Yes. Sorry. I'm backing up a little bit.
No. I know. I'm just trying to think through it in my own head.
Yeah, he swore the second ideal.
Yeah.
Which was, like, I think the bond to his spren. Even though his spren... Because, like, still came to Kaladin before he bonded her.
Yeah.
So they connect with the spren, and then they say it and become a radiant. That bond is finalized.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how it is in my mind.
So maybe you can be a squire with the first...
But it's not... You're not actually a windrunner. Until you say the oath.
Yeah, you can't do it on your own. Like, do the get Stormlight on your own until you've done the second one.
You can get Stormlight.
Because now he can probably go away from Kaladin and still get Stormlight. But he doesn't have a shard blade yet.
No.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's right.
You can get Stormlight when you're next to someone who is a radiant of at least the third.
Does it have to be the person that you're a squire to, though?
I think... Well, before you said that first ideal, I don't know that it does.
Yeah. You have to bump your...
I don't know why it keeps doing that. I don't think that it does, is what I was saying. And I think that we'll probably learn a lot more about that in Wind and Truth. I think there's going to be a lot of education on what it actually means to be a Night Radiant.
Okay. Interesting.
That's what I think, at least.
Yeah, I like it. I think you're probably right.
I wanted to... So, you want to go back to Dalinar.
Yeah, we got to finish Dalinar.
Let me segue with this. The fact that they talk about different ideals... I thought it was really cool when they go into Shadesmar and he's like, well, I got to go save the bondsmith. And they're like, hold up, which bondsmith? I really need to know. It's very important which bondsmith we're talking about here. Yeah. I'm like, okay, like they know what's going on and they have the same concepts of the Radiance.
Yeah.
But I think it was funny that it's like very important which bondsmith. So you know that there are specific bondsmiths that exist.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the key moments that tell you that. There's
And
one bondsmith with the Stormfather, and there's others that do different things.
Yes, that was super fascinating to me. Was it the Honor Spren that said that? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, the Honor's like, wait, what? There's a bondsmith?
There's a bondsmith.
Like, they're like, which one? I'm like, I don't know, the bondsmith.
He bonded the Stormfather.
And they're like, oh man.
Like, yeah, that's crazy.
It's a big deal.
And we know that there's 3 too. They said that in the book.
There's 3 bondsmiths.
There's gonna be 3 as well, which is so fascinating. So then,
because he says the Stormfather says there can only be 3.
Yeah,
bondsmiths,
which is interesting.
So they must do. They do. We know they do 3 different things. We just don't know who they are yet.
Yep. Then we find out that Dalinar is an awesome bondsmith.
Oh yeah,
because he's able to. So he has his whole experience with Odium. We kind of touched on it already, but he basically confronts Odium because Odium says, "I'm going to make you my champion."
Well, he finds out he is the one he was seeing with 9 shadows. It's him.
Wait. Yeah. What?
He was seeing himself? Into the future with the 9 shadows. Yeah. He was to be the champion. He was going to be the champion.
Yeah.
Taken over by the throne.
But why would that make him the man of 9 shadows?
It was just part of the vision. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll take it.
It was. Yeah, no, part of the vision was he was the one. He was the champion of Odium.
Okay, cool. See, this is why we have 2 people reading a book, because 2 heads are better than 1, right?
I missed a lot of that cultivation stuff, so it's a good thing we're both here.
On this read?
Yeah.
Oh, really? It was so good. It was so good. You got to read that again. You didn't get it the
We'll
first
do it on
time
the third reread.
I'll
nail it on the third one.
It's good. Well, yeah, now I'm like feeling like, is there anything really important that you missed from the cultivation thing? I think I already covered it. But anyway,
I got a lot of it. I just didn't get as much detail.
No, you're good. With the Oathbringer thing, though, or not Oathbringer, the Odium thing, he says that Dalinar is his champion, and then Dalinar basically has to confront himself and decides, like, you cannot have my pain and the mistakes.
One of the biggest moments in all of the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah, huge. Vera would agree if you've seen that episode.
If you haven't seen that episode, go check it out.
Yeah, hugely impactful for a lot of people, I think, including me. I love that book, part of the book. But it's also interesting. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, there are some powerful moments right when that stuff happens. Not even part of it, but layered on top that just make me smile. And there's just moments where you're like, just sitting down. And one of them is right as he is having this moment where he's connecting all of the realms. Right then, he's about to be killed by Amaram. And Kaladin comes through, and he's the one who blocks Amaram's shard.
Oh,
did you catch that?
Yes.
It's Kaladin's spear that comes in right at that moment and protects Dalinar.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love that.
Me too.
Especially because the chapter is the spear that cannot be broken.
Oh, that's what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And so he talks about that, and then the conversation that he has with Amaram just after that. And I know we're going to get to Kaladin, but I have to just say that part where he says, I forged you. I'm the reason you are who you are. It was me. And Kaladin's response is just incredible. He says, when 10 spears go into war and 9 break, it's not the war that forged the one, it's the war that discovered which spear would not be broken.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is wild.
Yeah.
And it's cool and it's awesome and it's impactful and you feel it. It's just the way it's written, the way it's voiced, the way everything. The whole setup, you're like, I'm glad I listened to 50 hours of this book for this moment.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
It's so good, dude.
It's incredible.
Such a good book. So well written. Yeah. The whole thing with Amaram too is like he just doesn't get it. Like he's the parallel of Dalinar, right?
Crazy.
He
Many parallels.
He loves the parallels.
I'm a fan of that too.
Yeah, I know they're great. But Amaram's the one who's like I'm going to give everything to Odium, and
he's planning to fight for Odium. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, I give him all my pain and everything. But then wasn't there a moment in the book where they said like that he still felt the guilt?
Oh no, that's Kaladin.
Yeah,
that's that
Kaladin.
same battle. He's
Yeah.
like, if this was right, why do you still hurt?
Yeah.
Is what he said. And then Amaram does not like that.
No, not happy.
Because he's recognizing I do still hurt. It didn't actually work. It was a lie.
Oh my goodness.
And you're like, he gave everything over to Odium, but it was a lie.
Yep. Classic. Yeah, see, Odium is a liar. And so you can't really be happy with getting rid of your past, right? You
Exactly. Can't actually happen.
Yep.
And the fact that Kaladin knows that and he recognizes that you can't get rid of your past. I think he probably knows this more than most, especially because his past is the reason he couldn't swear the fourth ideal.
Yep.
It's the fourth one, right?
Yeah.
And Syl's like, it's fine, like you're not ready. He's like, I don't think I'll ever be ready.
Yeah.
He can't get over the fact. So he knows the words, but we don't know them, right?
Yep.
I didn't just miss that.
No. We
don't know what the words are. We know he's not comfortable. He knows what they are, but he's not comfortable swearing it. He doesn't feel like he's ready.
Yeah. Which is also really interesting is that they can't swear these just willy-nilly. Like they have to understand what agreement they're getting in.
The intent is incredibly important.
The intent is a great way to describe it. Yeah, because you see it even with Teft. He's like, I can't make that promise. I can't. He's like, fine, I will. And
it's probably the reason why it was so difficult for a lot of the Squire Bridge 4 guys to actually become Radiants themselves, because it's that like you have to be in that mindset. And Windrunners have a very specific set of ideals that are all about protection and selflessness, which is difficult for most people. So I think that's a good reason that it's hard to become a Knight Radiant, because you're extricating yourself from a lot of these natural tendencies. You think odium and all this, like these passions that you have to just ignore to become something greater for society.
Yeah, you're making a promise to gain power, which is really fascinating.
It is very fascinating.
Yeah. Anything else with Kaladin that we want to chat with?
I think we have talked a lot about his character story, and it's freaking awesome.
I know. Awesome. Gotta love the Kaladin stuff, right?
I love the Kaladin stuff.
Not much to talk about here, but Yasna, again, shows why she's one of the most interesting characters in...
there's so much potential in her
Archive.
character, and it's awesome. Like the way that she's like, actually, I'm a super powerful fighter, even though
she's wild.
I do is like... I literally... Soulcast. That's she's soulcast, and that's like her main ability.
Yeah.
She does it so well that she's basically an incredible warrior.
I can't decide if she's overpowered. Like, do you think Yasna's overpowered being a soulcaster?
I think her personality lends itself to being the best soulcaster in the world, because she's just so detailed and so...
demanding,
intentional, demanding, like the beads and the souls, the elements, just like, sure,
like, whatever you want.
If that's what you want, I guess it makes sense.
Cool.
But she doesn't do it from a place of like, I just impose my will and everything. When she briefly explains it to Shallan in the middle of the battle, no less, she's very specific about like every single element and entity has a pro and a con, something that it wants, something that it doesn't want, and she knows that. So the element, like the wisdom that she's gained over years and years of study, and they harken back to like when she's studying, like she did a lot of this studying out of grief. So she was just nonstop studying, but she learned about all these elements and like, what does air want? What do you have to tell it? What do you have to convince it of, instead of just brute forcing your way like Shallan failed in. So I think it's cool because it doesn't come from, she's just that much more powerful. She built that up over a huge amount of time and a massive dedication. So now she basically commands those elements because she knows exactly what they want.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Really cool.
And didn't she say that air wants to be confined and then something solid wants to be free? Like there's
that's what you have to convince it of, like, don't you want to be free? And like to the air, you have to see, don't you want to have structure? Don't you want to be disciplined? You know, all that stuff. It's like you have to know exactly how to make that argument. You think about her argument in the essays. She's just really good at making an argument that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I like that a lot. And then the other thing with Yasna is that she's a soulcaster. Something that I didn't catch on the first time reading these books is that, I don't know, there's got to be a difference between the people who are radiant and soulcasters and the people who just use the soulcaster fabrials.
Yeah.
Did you catch that the people who are using the soulcaster fabrials are like falling apart? Like they're turning into the thing that they're soulcasting.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
I think it's because they can't control it. Because it might just be because they're just using the fabrial in a specific way. And you think about the fact that it is powerful. They can do it. But since it's like a little bit less accurate, it just everything starts to change.
Turn into smoke or into vines or whatever. Like
wild.
It's creepy. Like it makes these soulcaster people just very odd and like mysterious.
Yep.
People,
oh yeah.
Which is cool. Which is really cool. Renarin, another very, very cool character. I always want to know more about Renarin when I'm reading these books. And especially after finding out, he's bonded to a corrupted spren.
Yeah.
Gliss, which is super interesting.
Well, he like talks with Gliss too. You're like, is Gliss that bad? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's confusing. It's
is.
a very confusing part of the story, especially because his visions weren't quite right.
Yeah.
So like, is something corrupting his visions, or is a vision straight from Odium? Because Odium talks about knowing all these things and everything that's going to happen. And Odium had the same thought process that Dalinar was going to become his champion, all this stuff.
Yep.
When that changed, I'm just trying to think about, like, was the future that he predicted just imparted from Odium to him, or can he actually see the future? It was just corrupted? I don't know.
Yeah. It's really, sorry, big yawn there.
Gave it over to you at the wrong time.
No. Well, it's interesting though, because you're talking about Odium, and this is one of the reasons that makes Renarin so interesting, is that Odium can't see Renarin's future.
No.
If you notice that with Taravangian, he's talking to Taravangian at the end, and there's like a black spot around Renarin.
Yeah.
And he has no idea what's going on. That's got to be partially because Renarin can see the future, and it's probably a lot like taking ATM.
I was going to say, like when two people are doing it, then it negates the power. So if Odium can see the future, but Renarin can also see the future, they can't see each other's futures because they would just cancel each other out. I don't know. I'm not a big time travel guy. I think anytime you introduce time travel into a movie or series, it just ruins everything. But I do think that is a pretty common... Like, they both see the future, so neither of them can see each other's future because they just negate what they would do.
Yep.
So speaking of Odium, though, and the things that he can see, Lift is another killer in this part as well.
We almost forgot. Lift, Zeth, and the sword.
Well, I'm ending with the sword because it's probably one of my favorite.
Well, they're
parts.
kind of like all three of the same thing.
So Lift is great, and I just the one moment that I like in particular with Lift is when she's talking to Dalinar, and Dalinar's like, "I need you to go steal that ruby," and she's like, "Okay, cool, yeah, see ya." He's like, "No, it's the fuse they have." She's like, "Yeah, fine, steal the rock, got it. I'm leaving. I'm going." She's like, "It's not that hard. I'm just gonna go do it."
Yep.
Dalinar's like, "I need you to realize it's gonna be very difficult." She's like, "Meh, I can grab the rock."
I know.
She's so funny.
She's just so used to like stealing everything. She's hilarious. She's so good.
She is so good. She quickly realizes though that it is quite difficult, and she finds out that there are other edge dancers.
Yeah, and she just... I realize what she's been doing this whole time. She's just sitting on her knees and pushing herself like a paddle, like on the ground. Like, that's hilarious. But the Fuse, though, are basically ice skating, like around.
So, but she realizes that other people are better with her powers than she is.
Yeah, it's because they're ice skating. She's like, I need to learn how to do this on my feet. Like,
it's pretty cool. But I think it's eye-opening for her because she's been the only one that she ever knew of that can be awesome.
Yep.
But apparently not. So yeah, she has that interesting battle, and that's when Zeth comes in and helps because he swears his third ideal of the Skybreakers.
It might actually be fourth ideal.
It's not the fourth.
Okay, it's third. You're right. It's third. It's definitely third.
But he swears the third ideal to Dalinar's service instead of to service of
And
Sometimes
actually,
it's a law.
he doesn't swear it right before going in. He swears it after the whole battle,
Right.
which is interesting too. So
Yeah.
maybe he's like testing it out to see if. But it is interesting though because is it Nile? Is
Nail?
Nail? I can't remember Nile.
Man, it's
Nail.
tough. The pronunciations
I know.
really get me.
Either way, he's basically said the Skybreakers are siding. Did he say straight up with Odium, or did he say just with the Parshmen?
I think he specifically said with the original people. So I don't know if he meant Odium, but he did say they were siding with the original inhabitants. Of
Which I feel like he said and Odium at the same time.
But he
like,
might have,
which is
that'd be scary.
Crazy. And so like he just straight up says
The Skybreakers are tough. The Skybreakers are a really tough order to just like understand.
And now I know you feel a connection.
I
with
do
them,
feel
but-
a slight connection to the Skybreakers. If you've seen that video, there you go.
Yeah.
But and so I try my best to understand them a little bit more through this writing, and I think that's kind of cool. But it's one of those things where they are just. I feel at this point they're just a tool. They're not bad or good one way or another. They are like an entity of the Radiance. You know, they're not like they're supposed to be guided, right?
But-
they're not there to like set the direction. They're not there to lead. They're there to enforce.
True.
And they've been without so much for so long, and partially by their own doing. But I just feel like they've been corrupted along with the loss of the Radiance because they didn't leave.
Well, because the Radiants keep swearing their ideals are to follow the Nile or Nail.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't even know if that's a good idea because I think I'm crazy. Like,
He does. He specifically says, I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right.
He's like, I think, well, he says, he's like, I think I'm losing my mind from all these years that are living. But he also says specifically that he's like, yeah, there's a good chance that we'll be fighting you guys at some point in the future.
I'll see you again and we'll both fight with honor.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like these guys are straight up siding with the Fused.
Yeah. At this point, I still have hope.
Yeah.
Because I do truly think that they are just without guidance that they need.
Yeah.
I think they're missing a lot of that because they're swearing to Nile, and Nile's a bit crazy and he's been around for too long now.
Yeah. But
I think Zeth can lead them.
So some of them are swearing to him, but aren't some of them also swearing to like be with the Parshmen on their side and keep the law of like the original
I think
inhabitants?
Because the oaths are weird.
There's an interesting distinction between this because if you're swearing to Nile and Nail or to wherever he sees as like
if he changes his mind,
then
you can go
could,
with him.
Yes, but if it's not, can you break that oath to decide like, oh, I'm wrong?
No,
you can't. I know.
No, that's an important part of the Skybreakers. You would have to be killed like that.
Right.
They would have to fight.
So if you make the wrong decision, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah, and if man, that's crazy.
That's why the entity of the Skybreakers is so important. Like they have to be very careful with how they make these decisions.
Oh my!
They're also bonded to High Spren, which I think is very interesting because don't we meet them a little bit in the. Is
that a specific
Shadesmar?
type of friend?
Yes,
friend. I thought
it
that
is.
that when that
they're the uppity ones.
Well, I thought that Syl was also a high spren, and so
she's an honor spren.
I thought all spren who were able to be bonded were high spren.
We will have to look that one up.
Yes, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
No, I'll figure it out real quick.
Yeah, cool. Well, while you're looking that up, we also need to talk about the sword that he's carrying around.
Sword Nimi.
I love that.
Oh, sorry. I have to read this to you. It says specifically, it says high spren, but aren't. I have to go back now because it's in the blurb. It says high spren, but aren't all the spren that bond high spren? Did you write this?
Is this a Reddit thread?
That was the response. It's like, but aren't they all called high spren?
That's really funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Read this specifically.
The answer is nope, that's a common misnomer. Probably from people who take Yasna's comment about speaking to the high spren while she was in Shadesmar, blah, 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 blah. Stormfather calls the sapient spren true spren at one point, which is perhaps the best term that we have. They're often referred to as radiant spren in the fandom. So high spren are a specific spren for Skybreakers.
Well, there you go. Answered.
Also, if the person that wrote this on Reddit is watching the video, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so it's just one mention of it. They're called high spren once, I think, by Yasna.
Yeah.
But it's just incorrect because high spren are a specific type of spren, just like honor spren.
Okay, cool. Well, didn't know that. But we've got the sword here. Szeth goes through all his crazy training and everything. It goes through the sword, and you start meeting the sword for the first time if you haven't read Warbreaker. And I just love the sword. Like, he's just all like...
One track mind, I tell you what.
He's like a Disney character, like the way that he acts, which is hilarious. But then he just turns into just like so scary and like destroy and like just like strong, powerful, and just like this guy is freaky at the same time.
Before he's drawn, he's like, I won't kill you.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like
I've never killed anybody.
Yeah, it's like, come on, it'd be fun. Draw me.
But then, when I love the parts where he references Vasher too.
Yes.
And like another callback to Warbreaker. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but he does specifically be like, aren't you going to tell me that I do kill people? That's what Vasher always said. He's like, Vasher always drew me.
Yeah, seriously. He mentioned all sorts of people like, this person never drew me. Anyways, I'll be careful.
There's
I won't say
specific
names
people
on
that
things,
he likes and doesn't like.
Yeah, he's like, come on. It's just so fun. And he just like wants to be drawn. And then he like almost kills Szeth, which is crazy because this is the part about the sword that I'm interested in learning more about, is just like the sword seems to understand evil and like wants to kill evil, but ends up killing good in the process too.
Yeah, because
like,
it feeds on the life force of the good.
Yeah, I'm just
probably
like
the best way
everything.
to say it.
Yeah, like so it's not just destroying evil, but
and it's not just Stormlight. I think it's an important distinction.
Yes.
It doesn't just feed off the stormlight of the person. Once the stormlight is gone, it feeds on the person themselves.
Yes.
That's like pretty interesting and kind of intense.
Yeah, super intense.
And the fact that this sword is very different than a typical Rosharan Shardblade.
Yeah.
In the fact that it doesn't burn out eyes. It turns people to smoke.
Oh, man, this is interesting.
Very different.
Also, interesting, Vasher. Again, not going to get into crazy...
But he's mentioned a lot of times in this book, so we at least know the name.
We're not going to get into deep spoilers on this, but Vasher seems to have created a sword also that seems similar to the to Nightblood. Because her sword is not a shard blade.
Yes.
And then as she's killing people on the tower, you're seeing them turn gray, or not at the tower, but in the
in the final battle?
In the battle.
No, it was before that, right?
Is the battle, in
Kolinar.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Isn't that where they're
at? I don't
at?
know why I started with an A. I was thinking like Alethi, but the Alethi homeland, and maybe that's what I was thinking. But yeah, they're like turning gray. They're losing their color. And so, we've never seen a sword like that before, so I kind of wonder if she's created her own...
There are three very interesting swords, and this is something I picked up on before reading Warbreaker, so I can go into like what I was thinking when I first read it.
Yeah.
So we have Sword Nimi,
yeah,
which is awesome, and talks.
I think she talks to her sword too. I'm pretty
but we
positive.
Don't hear her sword talk.
Yeah, but you hear her talk to it, if I remember right. It's like she's talking to it. I misread this part, or maybe I'm misremembering, but I could have sworn, I'm like, this sounds like another Nightblood, like they did it again.
That'd be cool.
Probably different because they gave Nightblood the purpose to kill all evil.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think that so there's the difference. So Azure's sword is number 2, and number 3 is the sword that kills the herald.
Oh, the dagger?
Yes, the dagger that kills the herald. So when I first read this, I hadn't read Warbreaker. So those are the 3 swords that were just different than any other sword.
Wait, you mentioned Vasher's sword?
Vasher's? No, I mean, Sword Nimi is 1.
Yes.
Number 2 is Azure's sword.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
Because her sword still exists in Shadesmar. That's weird.
Yep.
No other, like all the other shard blades don't.
Yep.
And then the dagger that kills the herald. Those 3 are like, where did these come from? They're different and they don't work like anything else on Roshar.
Crazy.
So that was, you learn a little bit more about at least 2 of those if you read Warbreaker, but you don't learn about the 3rd one. And I think the killing of the herald is an interesting tidbit at the end of this book, because you're like, what? Like, we felt like we were just kind of getting to this ending action of this book. And then you're like, what just happened? What did they even do? Like, hold on. I'm missing
so crazy.
A huge part of this. And it's a big moment. Like, why did they decide to kill the herald? And not only that, the biggest herald. And I was thinking about this today as I was reading. So I'm like, you know what? It kind of stinks. You never like to see like the cool people. You're like, they gave their lives for this and then they're dead. That's kind of lame. But it almost makes sense that a new generation of heralds needs to come.
I know, but are they going to do that again? Because the heralds were only
They have to do it better. That's the difference. They have to do it, and they have to do it better.
Or they're going to have to get a better oath. Because
exactly. That's what I'm saying. They have to go into this, obviously, like eyes wide open, knowing that there were mistakes made. They brought odium to the planet, all that stuff.
Right.
But they have to do a better job of it.
But the heralds, part of their problem, like, I don't know, because you can't replace them. I don't know if you want to replace them, because I thought their main purpose was to hold back the odium and like the spren of odium every single time that they died, right?
Yeah.
And you don't really want to do that again because it was a flawed like plan, and you're sending someone to get tortured forever.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Do that. So it'll be really interesting to see what they end up doing with that.
So the reason I think this is different and they have to do it differently is because they can't do this back and forth forever. It's ridiculous. They have to get to a point where they can coexist. And they talk about this a little bit with like retaliation in the Radiant Orders, and like specifically with Kaladins. Like you can't, like, how do you expect to be honorable? Maybe it was the Skybreakers. How do you expect to be honorable when you're fighting for one side or another and both sides have been slighted? Maybe it was a story from Taravangian. Sometimes I don't know which way it goes. But it's one of those where it's like Taravangian says, okay, well, who's right? If someone at some, if you go back far enough, this person wronged this person eventually, like, are they not? He's talking to Dalinar.
Yep.
I'm remembering it now. He's saying, are you not justified, or would you have rather the Sunmaker finished his goal and united all of Alethkar and just killed tons of people? He's like, no, I can't, consign all those people to defeat. He's like, well, what if it meant that now you could have survived the Everstorm and all those people would have lived that died?
Yeah.
Like, how do you make that decision? And I think that the act of the Alethi came in, conquered all the Parshmen, put them in dull form, however they did that, someone did that, and then they made it so that they could conquer them, basically. And they keep going back and forth between Desolations and sending them back to wherever they end up.
Yep.
But now the Parshmen in the Desolations, they fight back and like, well, this is our land, and then they kill all the Alethi. And like, you just go back and forth, and it's kind of, roundabout. You have to get to the point where rules and structure say, okay, you're both here, you've both been wronged, everyone's been killed on both sides. You have to coexist. Both sides are not going to love it. Remember when he was talking to the Parsh woman, and he was basically saying, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? And she's like, nothing. It was Bentley.
Yeah.
There's no options. Like, we need all your land and all of everything, and you guys need to be gone.
Yeah.
Like, there were no compromise. And both sides feel the same way at different points in history.
Yeah.
So you just need to get to a point where
they bring up a really good,
it.
like, moral question, right? Just like, okay, well, how would you feel if somebody came into your house and like robbed you and stole your house and said, this is ours now, and like, you're gone. And then like where do you go? And like, what would you feel justified in them saying like I want this back now?
You have to figure that out.
Yeah, you have to figure
it out.
Yeah, it's such an interesting problem, and it's an even bigger problem though too, because like, well, where are you gonna go if it's a planet, right? Like you can't just leave the planet. They don't have spaceships anymore, at least. Like or they probably just came through Shadesmar actually, but. Anyway,
makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah. Just occurred to me. I'm like, wait a minute.
They had this other option, but I do think that is an interesting question. Like, how do they do it right? Because this back and forth is not going to exist forever. And I think the heralds did their best, but the reason they broke their oaths is because they realized it was wrong. The way they were doing it was wrong. I think they just need to do it better. So we'll see if they figure it out.
I agree. Okay, well, you ready to jump into a top 5 moments?
It is time. We have gotten to the point, and I think this will end our top 5 for the entire Oathbringer, because this is the last part. So
this is going to be the top 5 moments of all of Oathbringer. So
we got some doozies in this last part.
We do, and of course we do, because it's Sanderson, right? You got
the Sanderlanche always gives it to us at the end.
It's amazing. So number 1 so far is Dalinar at the Rift.
Oof, yeah, that's good.
Huge moment. Number 2.
We get another one of those again, too. We just get the same thing rehashed.
What do you mean?
Odium makes him relive it. I'm just saying we see the same moment.
Yeah. Number 2 is meeting Odium for the first time with the lift finish.
Yep. That's a good one.
It's a good one. Elokar murdered by Moash. Now Vasher. Or Vyre. We didn't talk about that. But
his renaming.
Oh, man, it's so crazy. He who quiets. Anyways, next is number 4 is meeting the Midnight Mother.
Okay.
Number 5 is Kaladin killing the fused on the wall.
Good stuff.
Man, all of these things, I'm like,
there's
some things that are
so
similar to some of the things that we already have in here.
Oh, yeah.
But they're topped by the Sanderlanche.
By these last moments. I think we knew that was coming, too. I think we even mentioned that.
I know.
These same moments, but just better.
Yeah.
So the first one that I want to talk about is obviously Dalinar's You Cannot Have My Pain.
Yes.
That's a big, huge, massive moment.
I'm going to put that as number 1.
You might as well just throw that on number 1.
Yeah, that is it's just too good. It's so good.
Yeah. Other moments that were notable, I think Kaladin not swearing the ideal was a big one. It was a big emotional moment. I think the killing of the herald. So not Zeth, why do I keep doing that? I guess now Vyre killing the herald.
So Kaladin not swearing the 4th ideal also involves like Syl saying like maybe it's time for someone to save you, which is also interesting.
Yep. And that whole final battle in Shadesmar is probably one moment with Adolin getting stabbed and being like, he'll be fine. Kaladin's trying to save him, but he can't, and all this stuff happens. Yeah.
Yep. What was the other one you were saying?
Killing of the herald.
Oh, the killing of the herald. Man.
I think he's still Moash at that point, so we can say Moash.
I think he becomes.
No, he doesn't become until the very end when he gets the honor blade.
Do they give it to him right before that?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm
like
at least 45% confident.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, it's within like a chapter or two.
It's
like,
really close. But anyway, so Moash /
Yeah.
But he kills the herald, and that's huge.
I'm going to call him Vyre anyways.
You can do that.
I'll
accept
No,
it.
it's got to be he's Vyre at this point. He's like, Moash is dead.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he says that as he gets the honor blade.
It's so crazy. Freaking Moash.
Seriously, that should be the title.
I know. Freaking Moash.
But
okay, then another part was
Wit using breath.
Oh yeah. What about?
We didn't even talk about that. It's a great epilogue.
Odium destroying the vision with Venli when he like sucks in with the black holes and everything.
Yep.
I thought that was nuts.
Dalinar capturing, is Dalinar capturing the thrill, the unmade? Is that part of You Cannot Have My Pain?
Oh, no, that's different.
Because it's a different scene.
I think it's huge.
Yeah, so Dalinar capturing the thrill, which is an unmade. We learned that.
Yeah.
It's one of the unmade.
Such a cool reveal. Let's see here. What else happened in here that like we're forgetting? We like talked about so many things. The visit with the Night Watcher and cultivation.
Yep. We might have a top 5 that just consists of the last part of the book.
I know.
Okay, let's see where we're at with that.
Hold up.
Do you have any more you can think of?
I
can go through some of my moments.
I think that the moment. There's a few of them. The moment with
when Wit becomes a Knight Radiant.
Yeah, did you put that together?
Oh yeah,
I forgot
right
about
at
that.
the end, the last part of the book, he swears the ideal.
Yeah, and picks up a spren.
Picks up a cryptic.
Yeah,
no less.
Classic. Of course,
He
would. Then you've got we've got Renarin, who's seen the future, which is fascinating. And
do we want anything with Sword Nimi?
Oh yes, I think the part when Zeth is carrying him around and killing everyone.
Well, when he draws the sword to what was the first thing he does with the sword? Does he kill the? Oh man, I'm trying to remember who he saves with the sword. Is it Lift he saves or is it Renarin?
I don't know. Doesn't he the first thing he does is he blasts through one of those rock guys. Thunderclass, yeah.
So that's his first moment.
Yeah, which was pretty sweet.
So yeah, him drawing. We'll call the sword Nightblood. It's more the official lore name because of course we are lore experts over here at Next Chapter.
That's right. I think they call him. Do they not call him?
They
Nightblood
don't call him Nightblood in this book. Not that I know of.
What? You're right. Just Sword Nimi.
But it's a really cool name, so we're gonna stick with it.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? I feel like there's so much that happened here.
I mean, that's a lot of good stuff. One of the things that I wrote down and I realized that I really loved is that how crazy it is that all of the fused go after Kaladin before Dalinar. Because Kaladin's getting pretty crazy in the battle. And he says all the fuse left trying to get to Dalinar because they realized the only way we're going to get to Dalinar is we have to take Kaladin off the battlefield. Because he's not going to let it happen.
This guy is nuts.
And I think that's just cool. It's a cool testament to he's so good that they recognize there's no chance they can get to Dalinar unless he's gone.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
How about another one is the Kaladin's fight with Amaram.
Yeah.
And then him getting shot with a shard.
By Rock.
Shardbow.
Yeah.
By Rock, yeah.
Rock killed Amaram. Pretty wild.
I know. I don't know how I feel about that, but it probably makes sense because then Kaladin doesn't have to deal with like the revenge kill type
That's
emotion.
true, but also the fact that Kaladin at the end realizes like there's something special about Rock because there's no way he should have been able to draw a shard bow. Like the Stormlight doesn't make you stronger.
You're right.
He specifically mentions that he's like Stormlight like can heal you, but it doesn't make you stronger. And he's using a shard bow without shard plate, and that's very important, I think.
Oh, that's a really good point. It's interesting because it doesn't make you stronger, but it kind of can. I'm thinking back to the moment when Dalinar lifts the rocks in the to fix the cathedral, and like it's like popping all of his muscles and joints like out of place, but then they're healing again, and he's pushing back up. So I don't know if you would say like that's like it's not increased strength, but you're definitely able to lift more than you should be able to.
Maybe the fact that he specifically mentions.
No, you're right. You're right. I was just thinking about. No, you're 100% right. I'm just like thinking about that moment. And
no, you're right.
How that works, true. And so, okay, cool. I think we've got some things here. So,
well, the problem is we have more than 5 to add to a list that already has 5 on it.
I know. Well, it was a good review of a lot of things. So
that's true.
Things
some good moments
that we mentioned on there that have to go in there. So
you cannot have my pain. Number 1.
Yep.
Did you already put it there?
Yeah, I already did. The other ones I have not put anything else in order anywhere yet. So I think Szeth drawing the sword and
should go on the
to
list.
Kill everyone. I think that should be on there. Is it better than Dalinar on the Rift?
No,
I definitely agree. Meeting Odium with a lift finish. Yes. So we've got that at number 3 so far. Okay. I think the Elhokar getting murdered by Moash should go above meeting Odium with the lift finish. By the way, I think that's such a shocking moment. Okay, the other ones I think will probably be changed in a minute anyways. So, okay, anything else here? We've got Kaladin's fight with Amaram. Is that a top 5 moment?
It might not be. There are some great moments.
I know.
So I feel bad saying it's not, but I don't know if it is.
I know.
Like even Dalinar capturing the thrill. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm agreeing with you. Are we seeing it? The visit with the Night Watcher and Cultivation?
No.
Can it be a top 5 moment if you skipped over it? As you were
that's a good point. I honestly would say best case would be like 6 or 7.
I know, right?
I would.
Here.
I don't even think Odium destroying the Vision gets in there. These have to be in like top 15, but the killing of the Herald is big.
It's a big moment, I think.
But it's not got enough fanfare on it. Kaladin not swearing the 4th ideal. Huge moment.
Ooh,
not enough fanfare though to make top 5.
I wonder though. I might actually put that
just above Odium and Lift.
Yeah,
I can see it.
I think so.
Oh man, Szeth drawing the sword.
It's Szeth drawing the sword. I think is amazing.
It is pretty. It's
just because the character of Nightblood is just so good,
so great,
so good. I just love all of that. Renarin seeing the future and Yasna not killing him, which is amazing. I think it's great.
Oh, man, I think we might have our 5.
We actually might already have our 5 with that. There's so many good moments.
I love the moment where Odium is like trying to be all this powerful guy, and then he's like, "What the heck was that?"
Yeah, I know.
That's still so cool to me. I know we got bumped to 6, but that is such a fun moment.
I know.
It's just like this all-powerful god lifts this kid.
Yeah,
completely
I would probably put
immune.
It above Kaladin not swearing the 4th ideal.
I just think it's so great.
I think it's probably a top 5 moment, and it is.
It's just a great, especially because Odium's such an important part of the book.
Yeah, and it's also amazing because in the same part, you're also seeing how incredibly powerful Odium is.
Yeah,
he is just the vastness of infinity and everything, and just incredible. So our top 5 moments for now.
Read them off.
I'll read them off. They're top 5 for now, unless we make a change.
And if you have a comment on the top 5 or something you would like to see in the top 5 that didn't make it up there, or you want to dispute the order, that is what the comment section is for. So we'll see you there.
Yes. So number 1 is Dalinar. You cannot have my pain. Number 2, Dalinar in the Rift when he kills.
He's a powerful character in this book.
It's his book.
It is his.
It is his book. Not the best. Szeth drawing the sword to kill with Nightblood.
I am actually gonna say, can we swap 3 and 4? Would you be
okay
with that?
I do. I think this is a huge moment.
Yeah,
And this
okay.
is risen through the ranks over time, which
freshly
is great.
updated.
I think this was number
3.
5 when coming into this list.
It should not have been.
It shouldn't have been. We're putting number 3. So number 2 is Dalinar on the Rift. Number 3 is now Elhokar is murdered by Moash.
Massive moment.
That is such a big moment.
Yep.
It's so heartbreaking to see the king dying right when he's about to swear the ideal.
Yeah.
Everything. Number 4, Szeth drawing the sword Nimi.
Yep.
Number 5 is meeting Odium with the lift finish. Other honorable mentions that just barely make it off the list.
Just
barely.
right there.
Kaladin not swearing the 4th ideal.
Yep.
The battle with the Midnight Mother. Kaladin killing the Fused. Dalinar recruiting the elite archer.
So great.
Taravangian's moments where he's brilliant. Dalinar lifting the stone. The story of the girl on the wall. And Dalinar in the Fight Club is what we'll call it.
It's good. That's because you almost remember those moments. It's like, that's the intro. That's
man.
the prep. So it's a fantastic book. Oathbringer is one of those that I have high on a pedestal for a reason. So if you were with us for this 4-part series, hopefully you agree with me and you can comment down below that it's an amazing and incredible book, especially for the payoff at the end. I'm also very curious to hear what people think about reading order, where it should go, where it shouldn't go. But thank you so much for following us along on this 4-part series. We're about to continue with a 4-part series on Rhythm of War, which is the 4th book.
Before we get there,
us.
But before we get there,
I know. One more sneak peek, I guess.
No. Before we get there, we're actually gonna be reading the Dawn Shard.
Yes, we have a lot to do.
So we'll do Dawn Shard for next week, and
Yes.
then for our 4-part series of Rhythm of War.
Yes. So
just want to make sure we remember
follow us
that.
for Dawn Shard, absolutely. And then the 4-part series of Rhythm of War, and then we will be prepared and ready for Dragonsteel Nexus, which we will be at. So if you're going to be there, let us know. Either way, follow us before this Wind and Truth launch by this series. And with that, we will see you in the next chapter.